Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the peoples of the Kulin Nation, the ultimate holders of wild plant wisdom. And I'd also like to acknowledge the pain that's been caused to them by us building over the source of their plants and their food and their medicine. When I was researching who were the traditional owners to acknowledge them for this talk, I came across a list of the top 10 sacred Aboriginal sites in Australia. Uluru and the Kimberleys and Uruma, sacred Aboriginal site. And I felt a little ashamed that I didn't realise that it was so significant. So I pay my respects to the custodians, the people that came here and gathered for celebration and for ceremony and for gathering of eels and plant medicine. And so I'm Sarah from T-Sense, and today I'm going to talk about wild weedy wisdom, wellness from your backyard, apothecary. And I'd like to start my talk by acknowledging that each and every one of you here comes from a lineage of ancestors. No matter what country, what land your heritage is from, your ancestry were people that had an intimate relationship with plants, an intimate relationship with the wild weeds that grew around them, and how to use those for their own wellness. And this was passed on down to their children and their children's children and their children's children's children. And this wisdom is still in your bloodline. It's still in your DNA. It may have been lost a couple of generations, might have been forgotten to be passed down because of the Industrial Revolution, and people moved away from the land and into factories and forgot on the way to the farm lands that, oh, there's that weed that I know I can use for this remedy. It started to become lost, but it's not completely lost. And also with the embrace of modern medicine, sort of the old-fashioned remedies got thrown out with sort of grandma's old funny ideas. And we started to embrace what we know as allopathic or modern Western medicine. Thought that that's superior to the plant medicine, but the plant medicine has been the basis from which all of our modern medicine comes from. And still today, 80% of the world uses plant medicine as its primary healthcare. 80% of the world still uses plants as their primary healthcare. There's a lot of wisdom that is still around, and we can still tap into that. So what do I mean by wild weedy wisdom, wellness from your backyard apothecary? So what I'm referring to is the knowing the plants that grow around you, particularly the wild growing plants, and the healing properties that they hold and how you can utilize them for your own well-being. And when I speak of wellness, I speak of it in a deeper sense than just the absence of illness or the curing of a problem. And although plants can definitely be used in a remedial sense, for example, I cut my finger, I put fresh yarrow on it, it stops the bleeding. That's a sort of a remedial direct action and response from the plants. But I really feel that the plants offer something a lot more in the deeper sense of healing. That bringing plants into our life for wellness brings an enhancement of our vitality overall. It brings enhancement of our joy, our pleasure for life, our delight in the simple things, and our reconnection to a relationship with the earth in a very visceral and very tangible, a very accessible way. We don't have to lament the fact that we just can't go out to be living in the forest all the time. We can step back out into our backyard and our immediate surrounds and start to have a deeper connection by utilising the plants as medicine as well as food, the bile plants in particular. So why is it a good idea, apart from what I've just touched on, why is it a good idea to know the plants and weeds growing around you and make your own remedies? Like, there's, you know, chemist warehouse all over the place. Why not just duck in there? So let's take the example of a sore throat, and very common illness or complaint. Just, you know, sing out, what do you do when you get a sore throat? And, you know, if it's a shot of brandy, you know, let's be honest. So what do people do? Ouzo. Okay. Or peppermint oil, great. Anything else? Apple cider vinegar, cool. Salt water and garlic, great. Honey, great. Has anyone used that little iodine solution in the bottle? I can't think what it's called. Is it betadine, the sore throat? Betadine sore throat gargle. So that's the example I want to use. That's what I've used for most of my life. I've got, sore throat, get in the car, drive to the chemist, buy a little plastic bottle with a little plastic cup, gargle, great, sore throat gone. Now that I've been working with herbs and I've discovered that I can go out and I can pick some sage and I can make a really strong infusion. It's really good for sore throats, by the way, sage, antimicrobial. And I can mix that really strong infusion with some cider vinegar and some salt, and I can gargle that through the day. And I look at the sort of, let's compare the betadine sore throat gargle ecological footprint with the sage and vinegar gargle. So by going out into the garden and getting the plants, you haven't driven, well, let's put it back to me, I haven't driven to the chemist. I haven't bought plastic. I haven't supported an industrial complex which is polluting in its very making of the product. I haven't put chemicals into my body which I'm not really sure of the side effects. Versus going into the garden and going into my kitchen cupboard, because most people have got salt and vinegar at home. And if you don't have a sage plant, there's probably someone in your neighbourhood with one poking through the fence. Or a community garden, that's what I do. So I feel that's, when we're talking about sustainable living at this festival, and I think that's a really good case for looking at the use of plants as medicine. And for anyone, is anyone into permaculture or, you know, yeah. So I'm pretty new to permaculture, and I'm just in awe of people that do permaculture, and they're like, this one thing has 5 uses, and I think it's amazing. I'm so inspired and I want to learn more. One thing I find a little curious is that when I speak to some permaculturalists about utilising herbs for medicine, so for example, I'm like, wow, look at all this yarrow you've got growing in your garden, and they're like, oh yeah, that's just for pollination. But you can use it for cuts. Oh yeah, it's just for pollination. Like there's still a little bridge to be built, I think about bringing the herbs into another way of being used into our life for medicine as well, and yeah, bringing perhaps a 6th use for that cool plant in your garden. So some more of the reasons why it's a really good idea to start or to increase your home herbal remedy making. So we've mentioned that reducing the ecological footprint, having more control about what goes into your body. So as we saw, you know exactly what's going in when you've made it, when you put the sage and the vinegar and the salt together versus something that's come from a chemist. What I really love about sharing herbal medicine making is it feels much more empowering. Instead of having someone out there that makes stuff that I can buy and the external helping me, it's like, oh no, I can actually have confidence that when I see the chickweed, yeah, I know I can eat that. Oh, the plantain, I know how to identify it, and I know how to utilize it for insect bites, for cleansing, for making tea, for putting in soup. So different, it just feels really good to know. And yeah, I really like having that extra sense of empowerment for knowing the plant medicine. And I find that when you start to work with the plants for medicine, you start to really strengthen your intuition or develop your intuition further. That's an example. So one day I was coming down with like a sore throat and a cough, and I was on the phone to my friend who's a bit of a herbie as well, and I said, I'm writing to the herbal garden near Edinburgh Gardens, the student colleges, the little herbal garden is sort of disarray, but you know, there's still some living herbs there. I'm like, I'm just trying to find something that will help me. She goes, well, what are you drawn to? I'm like, well, I'm drawn to the violets, like they're in flower and the leaves are really fresh and young. I'm eating them. She goes, well, that's what you're drawn to. Take that. I'm like, well, I don't think violets are good for that, but I'll take them anyway because I'm drawn to it. So when I got home, I researched, and sure enough, violets have got a, we say mucilaginous, so very slippery property, which is very soothing for the lungs and for the throat. And the more you tune into it, the more you'll notice, I'm drawn to this plant. And it's because it's intuitive level, your body knows that that is something that's going to support it. So the more that you sort of practice and play around and work with it, the more you'll develop this intuitive sense. Again, relying on yourself and not external wisdom to support your well-being. Cost. You know, anything made at home is way cheaper than buying it. So, insect bite, go to the chemist, cost of a bottle of Stingos, $9. Cost of chewing a plantain leaf out of your backyard lawn, $0. You know, it all adds up for saving money, or doesn't add up, whichever way you go. Yeah, so it is way cheaper to turn to the plants if you have a headache, and there's a feverfews everywhere. You know, chew on a feverfew leaf or make a cup of tea. It is a lot more cost effective, and it has a lot less side effects on your body. So that's another benefit. When you forage the weeds out of your surrounds, they're a lot fresher. And when you pick the herbs from your garden, they're a lot fresher than if you buy something from a shop. So lemon balm is a great example. Lemon balm is wonderful. It grows so easily, almost rampantly in some people's gardens. It never dries as well. So whatever packet of lemon balm you get from the shop is never going to be as good as the fresh stuff right outside your back door. So that's an added incentive for growing your own. Yeah, and also the food miles local. There's a bit of a craze for getting superfoods, often from South American jungles or somewhere in India, where the local people can struggle to have enough of their own medicine for their own needs, because all these rich Westerners have gone on this craze for maca and ashwagandha. So looking at, I'm not sure of the exact term for it, but just being respectful of, you know, do I really need this? Is there something in my backyard that could do just as well? And not destroying the medicine source from perhaps a developing country that doesn't have a lot of other resources to draw from. I'll say something else about that, that slipped my mind. Yeah, and I mean, weeds particularly, weeds are amazing. They haven't been pampered like these little lettuces we buy in punnets, and then we plant them carefully in our nicely double-dipped soil and water them, and they've just tenaciously grown up in cracks in the concrete, in the what's the word? Brain's fading. The untilled part of our garden. And I like to think that just as when we eat junk, we kind of feel like crap. We eat crap food, we kind of feel like crap. if we eat wild, tenacious plants, I like to think that we take on a little bit of that wild tenacity. And, you know, we are animals. As much as we sanitize ourselves, as much as we tame ourselves and fit into this human, we're not animal form. Actually, at our essence, we are animals. And animals graze, animals nibble on leaves, and they know that it's supportive of their health. You'll see dogs and cats will nibble on certain plants when they're feeling ill. They know what to go for. And the more we do it, the more our bodies will know what to go for as well. An example of that I found, there's a really cool little initiative just near where I live in Carlton North called HerbShare. And a couple of guys, a bit like me, didn't have much growing space and were always, you know, at night time with a torch picking some herbs from a neighbour's, you know, through a neighbour's fence, and they're like, why has everyone got their own rosemary bush? Why don't we just have like a communal one? So they got a set of, they made a set of, you know, planter boxes down one of those laneways and put different herbs in for people to share, and hence HerbShare. So it's a really cool initiative, and people can come and pick what they need. And I've lost my track. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So what I'd find is I sort of took it upon myself to like tend it, because I have a balcony, a south-facing balcony, so I don't have a lot of growing space. So that was my adopted back garden, one of them. And so I'd go and I'd have a little nibble. And some days I'd find that I was really drawn to the coriander. I'm like, oh, yeah, I just feel like the coriander today. And the next day I'd go back, yep, going to dig into the coriander, and I'd eat some. I'm like, no, I don't really feel like that today. And nibble something else, and I'm like, oh, I'm really drawn to the rocket. And it was like at a deeper body knowing, and it was because I was in this practice of grazing. Perhaps one day my body needed what was in the coriander, and perhaps another day my body needed what was in the rocket or the spinach or the kale. But just kind of nibbling on it in that way that animals do, just kind of grazing and going for what their body says, yeah, I want more of that. And that's a good way to move from our heads. It's like, today I'm going to have a coriander salad, to listen to, oh, actually I feel like I need something different. Just tuning into the body wisdom and the heart wisdom is really important, because our society is like kind of, we exist from our neck up. It's all in our head, but this is so much wisdom in the bottom half of our bodies. And so how easy is it to get into herbs? Do people play around with herbs? Let's see a little hands up, like who's already kind of playing around a bit with herbs? Yeah, awesome. Oh, awesome. That's great. Pretty much everyone. Really. So a lot of people come to me and say, oh, you know, I really want to learn about herbs, and I've looked up this course at Southern School, and it's like 4 years. And it's like, no, you don't have to do that. To be honest, I've got a couple of herby friends that have enrolled and done a year and dropped out because it wasn't, you know, they wanted to learn about plants hands-on, and it's a bit more textbooky, and it's not quite, you know, foraging in the forest like they perhaps had envisaged. So it is really as simple as, you know, starting in your backyard. And if you're like me and don't have a backyard, you can start in your local community garden. And if you're like my area and there's a 5-year wait list for a plot, you can start in the community garden perimeter, which is the shared area, which has lots of herbs, which nobody uses because they don't know what the crop it is, so there's lots for me. I tell people how to use it. And yeah, there's lots of herbs in, you know, community gardens and in the neighbourhood. And if you're in areas where they sort of poke through the fence, like if someone's got a massive bay tree, they're really not going to mind if you know, take a few bay leaves to make a cold remedy. I'd like to think so. And starting in your backyard with just one plant, maybe lavender, maybe rosemary, maybe putting a couple of sprigs in a teapot and drinking it and just see how you feel. Maybe taking a couple of sprigs of a herb and putting it on your pillow at night. Maybe drifting off to sleep with the smell of fresh lavender. It's the first thing you wake up to. the scent of fresh lavender. See how it makes you feel. Maybe making a foot bath, put some sprigs of lemon thyme in. How does it make you feel? And in this way you start to develop a relationship with the plants. It's very subtle. It's very slow and quiet because plants don't work on human time. When I talk about communicating with the plants or relationships with the plants, sometimes people feel that they're going to speak to us in human time and human terminology. So they might go up and say, "Hi, Borage, I want to know what properties you have and how you can help me." "Oh, I didn't hear anything. It's not working. I can't talk to plants." So, but imagine if you went up to someone, you're like, "Hi, I'm Sarah. Tell me everything that you can help me with, and right now." You know, you'd be like, "Ooh, hang on a minute. Like, let's kind of like, ooh, yeah, let's kind of build a bit of trust and relationship here." So I think it's a little bit like that with plants. I invite you to consider going out and sitting with your bush of lavender. And just sitting with it with you like you would with a potential new friend. Maybe you don't hear anything, maybe you don't feel anything, but it's the building of that connection and that relationship. Maybe you feel a sense of something but you can't really put your finger on it. Maybe it's calmness, maybe it's connection. But the more you spend time with the plants, the more you will feel something. Yeah, there's so many ways to weave herbs into your life to support your well-being. So we think in terms of like the kind of the allopathic way. So like, oh, I've got a stomachache, I will take some mint tea. And in fact, I think tea is probably one of the best ways to start with herbs. Just making tea out of things in your garden, and even things that you think, I don't really think that'd make a nice tea. You know, like sage, isn't that for like spaghetti bolognese? But just try it. Anything that like sage, thyme, rosemary, lavender, what else? Yeah, things that you might not necessarily think of to make a tea with. Make a infusion and just play around. Obviously, if you're a complete novice to gardening and you don't know, you know, oleander from sage, do check. You know, do check that you're not brewing something up that's toxic. Most things aren't. But yeah, if you're not super sure about plants, then make sure it's a nice excuse for a drink break. So some of the other things I mentioned were like making a foot bath. And like, foot baths? Who has time for foot baths? You know, I think one of the things I love is working with plants has really given me an opportunity to slow down and choose to not buy into the busyness. And in fact, you're all here on a Friday afternoon when most people are in the office, woo! So you're not buying into that busyness either. So the plants in their slow time encourage you to do lovely things for yourself, like make the time to actually make a cup of tea and sit on your veranda and maybe watch the sky and notice, oh, I never noticed that plant was in flower. But, you know, it really the plants encourage us to have more spaciousness, which is part of wellness as well. Yeah, so, fun ways. A lot of people don't think about doing really luscious, yummy things like making herbal honeys. Now they actually sound a lot more exciting than that. So one of my favorite herbal honeys was my first one, and so you start with a jar of honey and then you get a little jar, because this is your experiment and you don't want half a kilo of really yucky honey, so honey experiment. So you start with something little, and then you just use your imagination, like, oh no, how did I get I picked some rose petals, So I put some rose petals in, and then I thought, maybe some cardamom pods. So I pounded some cardamom pods and put them in, and some cacao nibs, and stirred that into the honey, and then just like let it steep for a month, and it is luscious, 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 luscious. And you can put all kinds of herbs, and you could try thyme, you could try rosemary, you could try linden flowers, you could try lots of different things. So that's a really fun way of bringing herbs in, and especially something that's bitter like hops. You can have bitter hops in honey and like take that, like a spoonful of that before bed, instead of making, it's really bitter to drink as a tea. And you can sometimes make connections. So why do hops help you sleep? Hops are in beer. How do you feel after you have beer? Sleepy. So sometimes you can get a sense of the use of the herb from how it is used in other products in life. What's another way? Vinegar. So one of my first vinegars is a rosemary vinegar, and it is as simple as getting a jar and putting fresh rosemary in and covering it with apple cider vinegar. Rosemary is great for memory. So rosemary for remembrance. A lot of the war memorials have got rosemary planted around them for remembrance. It's a great circulatory tonic, and it's a really good hair tonic as well. So I made it with the idea that I was going to use it as a salad dressing, and I definitely did use some of it as a salad dressing. But I thought, well, as a DIY herbalist, I need to try everything. So I made, so I took some of the vinegar and put it in a cup of warm water and took it in the shower and rinsed my hair. My hair was amazing. I'm like, why am I paying $15 for some conditioner when I can use a spoonful of like vinegar and rosemary to get kind of the same effect? So, and that's a really fun way to bring herbs into your life for wellness. Like, wellness is not just, as I was saying earlier in my talk, wellness is not just about the absence of a sickness. It's about increasing our joy and our pleasure and our nurturing of ourselves and others. And that is okay to do something nice for your hair or for your skin or make a foot bath. That's really important for our wellness, not just soldier on and, when I'm really, really sick, then I'll take something. No, it's about nurturing ourselves every day. And in most traditional cultures that I've spoken to, when I run little classes in the communities, there's a lot of different cultural groups who share, back home in Sri Lanka or Pakistan, we take turmeric every night in milk and it has this effect, and then every day we have a little bit of cinnamon because it has that effect. And everyone else is scribbling down notes. Wow, I never knew that. And then in other cultures, they'll say, we always have this medicinal congee, or we put these herbs into our soup because it has those effects. So it's seen as a daily nourishment, instead of, we can sometimes in the West be like, I'm just going to soldier on until I'm really sick and now I need to do something about it. I think in a lot of more traditionally based cultures, they know that a little bit like exercise, you kind of need to do it regularly to get the benefits. And the same with incorporating herbs into our life. The more we do a little bit on a daily or a regular basis, the more it's going to support us in a nourishing foundational way, rather than just a sort of like a bullet, not the problem on the head kind of Western way of dealing with illness. Making herbal oils. So people are probably really familiar with calendula growing, sometimes called pot marigold. People familiar with calendula? Yeah. That's really good as a lymphatic cleanser, but also it's mostly well known as a skin soother. So you'll often see calendula cream, which has got calendula in for skin soothing. It is really easy to make your own. So all you need to do is pick the flowers, I tend to dry mine a little bit before steeping them in. I use olive oil, but you can use different oils. And make sure they're covered by oil, and then once you've steeped them for 4 to 6 weeks, you can either make something called a salve or a balm, where you mix it with beeswax so that it's more like a semi-solid remedy. So instead of like trying to put oil on, it runs, you can use the oil, but most people tend to make it into a salve. Or you can whip it with some water or hydrosol and have a look online for a recipe. You can whip it up with some other ingredients to make your own cream. So for the cost of a little bit of olive oil and some calendula that you've foraged from the neighbourhood or your garden, not where dogs pee, so probably don't want that as a medicinal property in your cream. Yeah, it's really cheap and really easy, and it's all natural. So you can make creams, which I said, vinegars, honeys, tinctures. Take one step back. So St. John's wort oil is a really great, fun one to use. It's just so, like, it's a weed out in the countryside. It's so abundant, and when you steep it in olive oil, it makes a beautiful red colour, and is really great for using on like aches and pains. And the part that you pick mostly is the bud. That's where most of that red oil is, if anybody's wondering. So oils, tinctures. So when you go to the naturopath or the health food shop and you buy some herbal medicine, the plant has been made into a tincture. That means it's been steeped in an alcohol. So usually that's like a really high percentage alcohol that we can't access unless we're naturopaths. But folk medicine used brandy and vodka, well, mostly brandy, but these days brandy and vodka, to steep their herbs in. So last autumn I made a really yummy hawthorn and cinnamon tincture in brandy. So I went out up Castlemaine Way in the back roads, picked hawthorn, steeped them in brandy with some cinnamon, and it tastes like Christmas. Like, it's just so yummy. And hawthorn's really good for the heart. So that hawthorn is super great for the heart, and it's also fine to use with heart medication. It doesn't have an interaction. And cinnamon's very warming, so that's good for circulation as well. So really simple for the price of a bottle of brandy and some foraged hawthorn. And if you've got anyone, my tip is anyone going overseas, you put in the request when they come back through duty free to get you some brandy that hasn't had the really high Australian tax on it. It's when I was in the States, we were making tea. It's like, how can it only be $20 for a whole litre of brandy? That's not fair. And so they don't have tax on there. They don't have as much tax on their alcohol. What other ways? Smudge sticks. People know smudge sticks? Smudge sticks are bundles of herbs that you can, once they're dried out, so you pick the herbs, you make a bundle and you wrap it with a non-synthetic thread. You don't want to burn plastic or polyester thread, so make sure it's a natural fibre, and you wrap it around, and then once it's dried out, you can light the end of it and blow it out, and then the beautiful smoke from the herb can, traditionally it was used in hospitals to sort of purify the air, and these days you can use it to purify the air or to add a certain energetic field to the place. Like I've done all these experiments where I braided some leaves of a ginger plant, and when I burn that, I just feel, I feel like uplifted, light, bright. And when I burn lavender, I feel that's like really grounding. If I'm a bit, just sort of brings me back to the center. Rosemary, I just really like that. You can try that. Wormwood just feels like it's very antiseptic and very powerful, and some people say it clears away bad energies. And, so that's fun to play around with as well if you want to try another way to bring herbs into your life. I just play with anything. It's like, I'm making candles, I'll try and put herbs in them. I'm making butter, I'll try and put herbs in them. Just be mindful if you make candles out of the sheets of beeswax and you put big pieces of lavender in like I did, they become like flamethrowers. So just so yeah, you're going to have some, you know, hits and misses playing around. But I'm going to share my other miss. So I was trying to make natural deodorant, and there's this one in the shop that I love the smell of with cinnamon. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to make my own. Got some cinnamon powder in. Went out somewhere, happened to look in the mirror, and I had like brown sweat patches. I'm like, oh my god, I'm bleeding from my armpits. It's like, oh no, it's the cinnamon. Damn it! Don't use dry cinnamon powder or anything brown in deodorant. So yeah, I brought a couple of herbs in just to show you, because whenever I say, you know, plantain, and most people shake their head, I'm like, oh, you know, the one that's ribbed, and will shake their head and no. So I'm going to show you a couple of plants that are really common. So that's a sort of like from afar, and then I'll pass it around. And notice that the back of the leaves are ribbed. Like that's the big giveaway for plantain. I'd be surprised if anyone doesn't have plantain growing around them. It's like really abundant. There's two types. Up in the Dandenong way, where it's a little bit moisture, I find there's a round leaf, or we call it broadleaf, which is not as fuzzy and easier to utilise. But this one is much more common down in the drier areas, the broadleaf plantain or Plantago lanceolata. So why I love this one is particularly the broadleaf plantain is actually really yummy. I remember I was doing an internship in the States, and it was in a really lush area, and we were sitting out at lunchtime, and the lawn was just full of like little baby dandelions and plantain, and I'm just eating more out of the lawn than off my plate for lunch. It's like, these are actually really delicious. So if you can get hold of those, the broadleaf, they taste good. These make a nice tea, surprisingly. They're not bitter, so if you have some, you know, try making a pot of tea out of them. They're really good as a cleanser for the blood. But what I really love them for is they're fantastic for insect bites. So if you're out, you've got muzzy bites or bee bites, this is around everywhere. First thing I do is chew up a leaf and whack it on the bite, and we call that a spit poultice. So it's really cooling. What it does is it draws out the heat from the sting, and it's just, yeah, there's, you know, save $9 on a bottle of Stingos, and it's natural. And then what else? So yeah, I'd put that in soups. Probably a bit tough to put in a pesto, but I'd put that in like a bone broth or something like that. Anything that's going to like pull out the nutrients. That one's got a few more. Let's see. Really good for blood poisoning, internal and external. Inflamed digestive tract and liver. And the other plants, the other plants are this is a bit of a sorry state chickweed, because it is kind of well past its season. So there's two plants in here that ignore the one that looks like cannabis. It's not, it's agrimony. It's the little dainty one, chickweed. So a lot of, so the bane of my life is when I help in community gardens, and I'm like, oh, look at all these amazing thistles and chickweed, and people are just ripping them out. Oh, get rid of those. I'm like, oh, it's like free food and medicine. So chickweed is like, you know, yeah, it's not as amazingly tasting as rocket or parsley or basil, but it's free food and it's great in salads, and yeah, it's pretty abundant. You don't have to make any effort with a chickweed to grow it. I'll just double check what other. Oh yeah, of course. So it's really good for skin soothing. So you can make a little poultice of that and put that on any skin irritations. You can make an infusion and use that as an eye wash for eye irritations, and it's also good for the kidneys. So yeah, other medicine that'll be in your backyard. We've got, so the reason I've got a lot of pots of multiple things. I grow the medicinal or edible plants on my balcony, and then I go, oh look, these weeds have popped up. I'm not going to get rid of those. So in the midst of this pot, one of them's mint, one of them's turmeric. The one that's not mint or turmeric is sow thistle or sow thistle. That's sow thistle. Yeah, so just pass that one back. Now, a lot of people, again, want to pull that one out, but I get really, well, if I help in the community garden, I'll pull it out and take it home to eat, because I know people are just going to pull it out and throw it away. I just put that in salads if they're nice young leaves like that. Anything with a bit of bitter is good for stimulating digestion, bile production, and also a little bit of bitterness is good for the liver as well. So in our drinking culture, I think we can, do with a few more liver supporting herbs. So this one, great also. And I didn't bring the one with nettle in. Okay. Nettle's a great one as well, so definitely don't throw that one out if you have that in your garden, because that one is full of minerals and really good, really nutritious, full of iron and great blood cleanser as well. Also is used for supporting the body before hay fever season, so it's used as a remedy to build up your immunity to allergies. Great, so
Nettle the one with the yellow flower?
no, nettle doesn't have a yellow flower. Is it flat weed with a yellow flower? So there's two that look really similar that people get mixed up with. One's dandelion and the other one is it coltsfoot? Oh, cat's ear?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Cat's ear.
Yeah.
Cat's ear.
So the way to differentiate, the one that's really valuable is the dandelion, and that, we call that, has a rosette, so like the flat base, and then it comes up with one single stem with one single flower on it, and with a yellow flower, and then it will turn into a puffball. That's the dandelion, so that's fabulous. And you can use every part of it. You can make dandelion wine, you can pickle the dandelion wine from the flowers, you can pickle the stems, eat the leaves and the roots as well.
Are the dandelion leaves hairy at all?
No, the dandelion leaves aren't hairy, not the ones that I've seen, and that's a really good differentiator, thank you. So the one that looks like it, that isn't it, tends to have hairy leaves. And the other thing I notice is the stem will it'll come up, but it'll have little side branchlets, as opposed to the dandelion will always have a single stem with a flower. So yeah, not hairy. Thank you. Has anyone else got any weeds in their backyard that they use for medicine they'd like to share with the group?
Amaranth, but not the medicinal.
Amaranth, great. And what part do you use? The leaves, great. Awesome. And have you tried harvesting the seeds?
Well, the amaranth we have doesn't go through the seeds.
Great, yeah.
There's like a seed version and a variety of the variety.
Yeah, okay.
I have harvested the seeds.
Yeah.
And then
Cool, thank you. Anyone else got any sort of weeds they use in their backyard that they could, or curious about? That, yeah. Mallow, one of my favourites. I'll hand you this. Do you want to share what you do with it? Sore throat, yeah. And how do you like to use it? Make a tea, great. Yeah, mallow is a fabulous one, and there's so much of it around. Wish I had a plant to bring in. I'm going to expand my herbal garden to bring in. It's kind of got a leaf like that. Yeah, it's mucilaginous, so it means it's got that slippery texture. So if you see one of the leaves, just have a little chew on it in your mouth, let it masticate, and you'll find this slippery substance, gel-like substance comes out. And anything with that in means it's really good for like sore throats or lungs or digestive tracts. And when I help out at series, I hear that groups of little old ladies with Italian and Greek background coming in and like harvesting all the mallow leaves, and they're like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, we cook them up. They're fantastic vegetable." "Oh, great." I've also heard people pickle they're called cheeses, which are like the fruits that come after the flower. So you could try doing like a caper kind of thing with it. In terms of the medicinal properties, the tea for the sore throat, diarrhea, constipation, bronchial inflammation, and skin soothing. So you could put it, anything that's irritated has that lovely soothing property. Just check the time. Yeah, a couple more minutes. So has anyone else got some? Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yeah. Capeweed. That's a great question. I don't think I'm familiar with capeweed. Does anyone else know something you can do with capeweed? Yep. Oh, it can be toxic to eat. Yeah. Okay, South African plant, right. Oh, good for native butterflies.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with it, sorry. Yeah, maybe have a look online. Ah, yeah, great. One last one? Yeah. Purslane fleshy? Oh, yeah. Purslane. So I'm sure there's some of you here that know about purslane. But so you can eat it, definitely, high in omegas. So that's a really nutritious source of food. So definitely, if you've got that on hand, you can eat that. And something with the wild foods I should mention as well, just because we can eat a whole bowl of lettuce from the supermarket doesn't mean that we can eat a whole bowl of wild foods. Remember we were saying they're so tenacious, they're so concentrated in their minerals and nutrients and constituents that you just need a little bit. You'll probably find that your body will go, well, that's a bit much if you start having massive bowls of purslane. So just a little bit. And to finish off, because I just got the 2-minute thing, I just like to leave you with this. And if anyone's got further questions, come and grab me afterwards, and feel free to come up and have a bit of a chat. So to leave you with this, some people believe that the symbiotic relationship between plants and humans is such that the plants will appear around the humans for what the humans need. So the plants will come to the humans and support them in what they need. And I see no little irony that there is masses and masses of St. John's wort, which is one of the most highly regarded remedies for depression, en masse in Australia, growing as a weed, particularly in rural areas. People wanting to pull it out and ditch it, and yet have chemical remedies for depression. I just find that really interesting to see how much St. John's wort has come up in Australia, where depression is a pretty big problem. So the invitation is, have a look at what's growing around you. Have a look at what plants have come to you. What's growing in your garden? What medicine, what message does it have for you? So thank you for coming today, and I hope that you found some ideas and inspiration, questions. And so if you want to learn more, I'll have a mailing list. You can put your name on and be in touch for weed walks or So yeah, thanks so much for coming along. Enjoy the rest of the festival. Cheers.